into the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard De La Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Hello.
It is Monday, January 9th, 2023. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, the YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post new videos. Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse, where you can support us for $2, $4, $7, or $10, and you can get early access to our videos, access to our Discord server, or your name in the credits and other fun stuff. We do have news. We have a lot of news this week.
There's a good amount of news,
happened,
yeah.
So there was a bunch of stuff going on there. And then as 2023 gets rolling, all kinds of games are going to start coming out because a bunch of stuff got delayed.
Yeah.
And then there's stuff that just that was supposed to come out this year that's going to come out this year. I will start with what video games I've been playing. Because I wanted to go back and play the original Dead Space before the remake comes out, which it comes out not next week, but the week after, the 27th.
27th, yeah.
And I played through the first Dead Space once. I played through the second Dead Space once. I played Dead Space 3 for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And not much after that. I remember really liking Dead Space 2. I remember liking the first Dead Space, but I don't know how often this happens in video games or really anything, but I think Dead Space 2 might be like way better than the first one.
I think so, personally.
But one thing I do remember taking away from the first Dead Space was how samey the entire game is. And playing it back through again, it's like, oh yeah, I was right about that. A lot of the game feels like it's all one color. It's all like a rust color.
Yeah. The
entire ship is that color. All the corridors look the same. All of the levels are really interchangeable. It's a fun game. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, going back and playing it, I was like, yeah, I remember like not really liking how monochromatic and sort of monotone so much of the game is.
Lots of brown.
Yeah, lots of lots of rusty, like copperish type spaceship parts.
Brown and blue. That's it.
Yes.
I think it's probably a little longer than it needs to be. I'm not saying new stuff about Dead Space here, but the combat is fun. One thing I do appreciate about the first Dead Space is you get all these different things that you can upgrade. Isaac's suit, all the different weapons, but you don't get enough things to upgrade all of them. At least I'm halfway through, and I am not finding upgrades nearly at the frequency that you would need to upgrade them all. So maybe completionists can do it, but I think someone just sort of playing casually and looking here and there, you're not going to find enough of the power cells or whatever they're called to upgrade his gear all the way. So you kind of have to pick and choose which things you want to upgrade. Yeah. And then once you pick a weapon or something you want to upgrade, you kind of have to decide how you want to upgrade it. Because weapons have upgrade trees where it's like all the different, when you upgrade it, you slot in like a cell and you activate that dot, and that dot may give you nothing or may give you like more damage or more reload or something like that. And so weapons have upgrade trees. And like the top of the tree may be magazine capacity, and then reload speed, and then nothing, and then damage. And the bottom tree will be damage, magazine capacity, nothing, damage. So it's like you go to the bottom and you go the bottom all the way, you're going to get way more damage. If you go to the top, you're going to get all those other things. If you try and alternate, you'll get it all, but you're going to be spending a ton of those upgrade points just on that one weapon, which you can do if you really like a weapon. But that also means you're going to be dependent on like that one type of ammo and stuff like that. So I actually kind of appreciate that because I feel like it's almost like an RPG in a sense, because, and I completely forgot about this in the first game. But it's like, because I really had to think about, which weapons do I want to upgrade? And there are weapons that I'm not really going to touch. And I was like, so if they added a new game plus to the Dead Space remake or something like that, that'd be great, because then you could go back and try out the different weapons. And I really like the combat in Dead Space. The shooting off the limbs of the aliens and stuff like that is fun. The camera, I do remember the camera. The camera is man, it feels like you're turning a boat every time you turn the camera.
Good old tank controls.
Yeah. This one is super tanky. And I think it's supposed to be evocative of like Isaac's suit, claustrophobia, because he's in like this big like mining engineer outfit. It's like the idea isn't that he's like an athletic warrior. You know, even when he walks, he's sort of hunched over. You know, he's kind of like a knight in armor.
Which that design in general is very, very interesting to think about when you kind of look at the tech in that world as well. It's all
very rough.
Yeah,
it's not sleek at all.
No,
on the Ishimura, it's all very
low high tech. Like
I know. Yeah, but it's like you'll get to certain decks of the ship, and the floor will just be. It'll just look like what are those fences called? Chain link fence.
Yeah.
It'll just look like a chain link fence. So it's very lo-fi. Maybe one way.
It's real tech.
Sure. Where it's just not like it's just not super sleek or anything. And that all adds to grimy is another word I would say.
Yeah.
That all adds sort of to the like monotony and the terror of it all, I think, because it makes you kind of feel, even though you're out on a spaceship, it also makes you feel not super like technologically advanced, you know, and that makes you kind of feel vulnerable. But still, Dead Space is really fun. I'm taking it in bits and pieces. I don't know if I'll beat it by the time the.
It's a short game. I think you will.
Yeah, I'm halfway through it, and if I can keep focused on it, I think I will. The other game I want to try. There's a couple games I want to try and finish before 2023 gets going. I got a little bit more into Avengers, enjoying Avengers. Guardians
of the Galaxy?
Guardians of the Galaxy, yeah sorry.
I was like, you're not playing Avengers. No way.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Sorry. Of what I've played in Guardians of the Galaxy so far, I still enjoy. I just wish they figured out a different way to do the dialogue, because there are so many times when it's like, I feel like I have to stop and just wait until somebody finishes there, because I don't want to miss it, because some of it is really good. Some of it is kind of like, I don't know, like if I wrote a Marvel movie, you know, like a basic sarcastic character, you know. But still, I really hate how often I'll turn a corner and a cutscene will engage, and I just lost a conversation between Drax and Groot or something, you know, something funny like that.
Well, it's only half a conversation.
Well, of course. And then the other game that I am trying to beat is Baldur's Gate. Got really far on Baldur's Gate. This has happened with other games in my life, as I'm sure it's happened with you guys, where you get like really, really, really far at like 96%, and then for whatever reason you can't like get the time to beat it. And I got to the final fight, and oh my god, Baldur's Gate's really good, but man, is it just like, it does not care. The final fight of Baldur's Gate, they just toss so much shit at you. It is insane. And I think it's just a byproduct of
the DM freaking out, going shit, more enemies
of the time. Because I don't know, when you play older games, it feels like older games had way more difficulty spikes, and maybe it was because it was harder to test or whatever, you know? I remember there's this crazy difficulty spike in Splinter Cell Chaos Theory that still haunts me to this day. There's a few other games with difficulty spikes. But yeah, this ending of Baldur's Gate is like, holy shit. So it sends enemies at you, and these enemies, they're doppelgangers, which usually aren't that difficult to fight. But they have this spell that makes them attack really fast, and that makes their body appear like a phantom. So it makes them way harder to hit, and they just melt like my frontline fighters. And so it's like what I've had to do is, it's cheesy, but I don't care. You don't activate. The boss fight plays out in two phases, right? So if you go to one side of this room, because the final boss fight takes place in like a rather large dining area. If you go to one side of this room and you send one of your, I sent my scout because she's fast and she has like boots of speed. I send her to the middle of the room. It activates the first phase. And then I have her run all the way back. And then I had my mages cast, one of my mages cast a a web spell, which webs enemies if they roll poorly against it. And I have my my druid cast a similar spell, which are these like light tentacle things that come out of the ground and they grab you like whatever roots. And they stop you too. So I have layered spells, both of which do essentially the same thing, which is they stop you from moving, right? So, how I ended up attacking this fight is I sent my mage forward, activated the boss fight. My mage runs back. As my mage is running back, or as my scout is running back, my mage and my druid or priest do their slow movement spells. The enemies that filter through and roll well, I just had to kill, and then I just slowly waited for enemies. Instead of them mobbing me, I sort of waited as they like one at a time filtered through. And then you kill all those guys. Now, the second phase of the boss fight, you have to activate by going to the other side of that same room, and then the second phase starts, and then you get a shit ton of enemies again. So what I did is I have both of my mages have wands of Fireball, and Fireball is this super powerful spell that just blows shit
Fireball
up.
Is pretty powerful.
And I have them cast Fireball into, because you can only see like 10 meters in front of you.
Yeah.
But so they can cast it further than they can see. so I have them cast it into the darkness.
I cast magic missile into the darkness.
Yes, and because the fight like hasn't started yet, I'm killing off like enemies here and there who aren't fighting with me. They're just getting randomly hit with fireballs and dying. So I'm like slowly trying to screen the room by casting fireballs into the darkness. I don't know. You can't leave the room though, which sucks. So you can't rest or anything.
Okay.
Which means like a lot of the spells and stuff that I've used are gone now. So I'm just gonna have to. And the second phase of the boss fight is the actual boss of the game. So I'm just gonna have to try and beat that guy with whatever I got.
I don't think
left.
you're being cheap. I think you have forethought.
Yeah.
I really like tried to figure out how to do it well, because just going into the fight, you just get mobbed instantly. So. But yeah, I had one more thought about Dead Space actually I want to share. One problem, I don't know, it's not a problem with the game, it's a preference I have. So, space is terrifying.
Yeah.
More terrifying than anything humans can come up with.
Yeah.
Lovecraft
got so obsessed with trying to come up with the fear of the unknown that he made up monsters that are beyond our comprehension. But like space is like a black hole. Are these things that disrupt the space and time? These things that we don't even think about. And black holes just eat that shit for lunch.
Yeah.
And they're everywhere. They're all over the fucking place in the galaxy. And they could be killing civilizations right now. We have no idea, right? Space is terrifying enough. I understand that the inspiration for the game is stuff like of all things, Event Horizon. So you have like demonic portals to hell and stuff like that. But space is terrifying enough without any human invention whatsoever. And so I much prefer space games that sort of lean into, like Alien, for example. Alien is just, it was like an animal that you find out there that is just a super killer, but not something that is like supernatural, at least the original Alien. Something supernatural and like has to do with curses and religions and cults and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's, I prefer that. I prefer the space is terrifying enough. We don't need to make things up to make it more terrifying, because there's nothing humans can make up that is more terrifying than just the vast emptiness of deep space.
Yeah.
Where there are places in space where there's like not even particles.
Yeah.
Where there's particles over the place coming from the sun, whatever. I don't know what they're called, muons and stuff. There are places in the universe where it's like there is almost literally nothing, like not even tiny little particles, nothing. Anyway, so, But I do appreciate, but I know what Dead Space is going for. I just think it's kind of cheesy sometimes because it's like, it's demons. It's scary, but space is already scary enough. Anyway, okay.
We were talking a little bit earlier about how I know too much about D&D.
Yeah.
I knew what spells Tyler was talking about by his descriptions.
Yeah,
it was Web and Arms of Hadar.
Nice.
I don't think it's called Arms of Hadar.
Is it Hunger of Hadar?
I don't think it's anything of Hadar.
Sounds like
you're lying.
Sounds like you're lying.
It's second edition D&D.
Yeah, that's fair.
Was that what you were trying to look up?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is awesome. And
yeah, well, Web.
I don't want to say I know about anything, but you mentioned Event Horizon, and I was like, I tried to be like, well, you know, Event Horizon is the start of Warhammer. Warhammer 40K. Yeah, apparently, like, Event Horizon is like the first contact of Warhammer 40K. Like, the director like put that in.
What? No way! I didn't know this.
Yeah, there's like a whole theory behind it and whatnot, and everyone kind of like widely accepts it.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, okay, cool. All right, who wants to take it next?
Richard. I haven't been doing too much, or nothing that has like progressed my my like gaming landscape. Mm-hmm. I've done some more in God of War, beat another Berserker, but I've been kind of hacking at that slowly, finding even more things to unlock in the world, which is still such a treat. And I can't wait to. I found all the stags already, which was easy enough. It wasn't like difficult or anything.
Fun quest.
Yeah, I know it's a good one. And then I found a couple more of the wyverns, not wyverns, drakes.
Wait, are you talking about
Nidhogg's? Yeah, Nidhogg's babies.
Oh, those. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, found some of those, so that was good. But yeah, I haven't done too much more on that. I've been playing a lot of Vampire Survivors. Like I kind of got back into it, and so now I'm finding ways to get better thanks to word of mouth and just playing it, obviously. And so now I've gotten to the point where every map you're supposed to last 30 minutes. And at that 30-minute mark, you've completed the level, quote unquote, but the timer still goes. What happens at 30 minutes is that all the enemies get wiped from the screen, and Death, a Grim Reaper, a red Grim Reaper, just beelines it straight to you.
Oh, damn.
And kills you. It's a like one-hit kill. And he moves faster than you can think. So it's kind of just like, that's just the end of the level. But you can survive. Like, if you get good enough. So depending on which like items you choose and routes, there's two that I choose. It's called the Clock Lancelet and the Laurel. So the Laurel gives you a little aura that if you level up to level 10, it basically prevents you from getting damaged. And then the Clock Lancet in not tune of the clock, but the pattern of a clock, like clockwise, shoots out a single string that freezes any enemy in that trajectory.
Okay.
And so the other night I hit 30 seconds and I had both of those at max, and I kept freezing him. Like I kept freezing him while attacking him and kind of circling around him. The red Grim Reaper, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
so
awesome.
I kept freezing him as I was circling around him, trying to go the same way the Clock Lancelet was going, so it would keep freezing him. And he would just kind of stick on me when I wasn't able to freeze him, and the Laurel would do its thing and I wouldn't get damaged. I hit 31 minutes, and then a second one came out.
Oh, geez,
and I didn't know that happens. The second one comes out.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I talked to my coworker who's a lot better at it than I am, and he says that every minute that you survive, it adds another one until you beat the first. Like if you beat the first one, then that's it. Like you did it. Like and it'll get rid of all of them and you beat it. But I still haven't done that yet. Right now, I'm just kind of trying to unlock more characters, which there's a lot of characters and they all do different things. Like the main character, his weapon is a whip, Castlevania style.
Yep.
But he also gets, I think, 1% or 10% strength every 10 levels. So he has like a particular buff to him.
Okay.
The second character has like a magic wand that shoots out like a magical beam like every X amount of time. And so they get like, I forgot what they get, 10% weapon speed every 10 levels. So you kind of pick and choose who you want to use with what weapons would be good suiting that overall like kit that you choose. But it gets to the point where it's very, very satisfying to just sit there and not do anything and watch numbers fly around the screen. And that's a lot of the draw of it. Yeah, it's a fun game in and of itself, but yeah, sitting there just watching all of that happen is very, very satisfying. So I played that, played a bit more of Gundam Evolution that came out on PC back in November. I think November. I played it then and it was fine. It was good, but we didn't stick with it. But it came out on consoles just recently at the end of December, middle of December. And I finally went back to it again on console this time. And I don't know if it's because I'm playing on console and it's different than PC, or if it's been a while now and they finally like made some improvements to it. But it feels a lot better as a game, and it feels more fun to play this time around. It's still as fast as it originally was, but I feel like I have more of a grasp on. It's not as chaotic as when I first played it, because when you first played it, of course, it was launch and everybody kind of was just figuring things out. Now I think people have kind of figured things out and know how to play. There's a lot less bodies on the screen, if that makes sense. People kind of have a purpose now. They understand what to do in the game rather than just kind of like fly around, shoot everything. You know? So. But that's going very well, along with Overwatch and all the other like games I'm continuing to play. That's all I've been doing this last week.
Okay, Connor?
I similarly played a pseudo horror game set in space with Hard Space Shipbreakers.
Oh, okay, nice.
Still working down that $1 billion debt. I'm actually now down into, $1 billion debt. I'm now down into 990 million.
Oh, wow, that's pretty low.
Only a couple hundred more years to go.
Yep. I've done a few more of the ghost ships, which are always fun. Going around burning off the rogue AI nodes that are forming on the ship, having them scream into your helmet because, you know, space sound doesn't travel through, but you can hear them screaming. Having the life support systems, the screens, and the airlocks randomly activate or deactivate while you're working throughout the ship, even while it's unpowered, is terrifying.
Weird. Okay.
It's a rogue AI just doing its own thing. But yeah, always fun.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Hit that ad. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. Did you know Gaming's Zelda Tactics video is back up? So some background, a few weeks ago, we talked about the obviously very famous YouTube channel, Did You Know Gaming. They made a video about a Zelda Tactics game, which is going to be developed by Retro Studios. I forget which, it was a couple, was it like 2000s? I forget when
it was mid 2000s, yeah. I think the Wii was out at the time, yeah.
Nintendo ended up axing, for whatever reason, they canceled the idea. Did You Know Gaming did a documentary about it, what the game was going to do. They had concept footage or concept art and stuff like that. Nintendo issued a DMCA, copyright takedown. The video was down. Did You Know Gaming apparently challenged it, and after a few days, the video was brought back up. I want to have Shane Gill, who is the owner of Did You Know Gaming, tweeted, quote, when you counter a DMCA on YouTube, the company who DMCA'd you has 10 working days to show that they've taken legal action against you or the video is restored. So I spent the past 2 weeks checking my mail to see if Nintendo was suing me, end quote. So apparently Nintendo hasn't acted unless they're being super, super slow on it. I think this is good across the board.
Yeah.
Connor and I, we fought, we choked each other, almost died. It was like
the bloodbath.
It was like Snake and Liquid Snake at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4. It wasn't that bad.
I don't know. Yeah, once again, we're not like we're not sure of the legalities of everything, but this is not the Zelda Tactics game is not trademarked. Like, they're not actively working on it. This is something that was brought up and canceled, and the people who worked on it, or one of them at least, felt they were comfortable enough, or it was in their right to speak about this because there was nothing holding them back from doing it. There was another Did You Know Gaming video I saw about half a week after we did that news, and they spoke with somebody who used to work with Nintendo in the SNES days, 64 days, and they asked him a question, and he immediately was like, yeah, I don't think I can answer that one. Like, so they already know what they can and can't speak about. So as far as I'm concerned, at least what, from the face value that I get here, they were all well and good to make this video, and nothing, there's no harm to Nintendo making this video, in my opinion.
No, if it's such a big deal, you'd think Nintendo would challenge them or
right,
something like that, or get it, I don't know, region blocked or whatever. And, if it's such a big deal that they take it down the first time. But I think I am not an expert when it comes to philosophies of freedom of speech and journalistic freedom and stuff like that. But I do feel like there is a level of, you should be able to report about things that are true. I think that's just something humanity should just agree on. Is it more complicated than that? Because what is true? Should you be able to report on secret missions that Navy SEALs are doing? I don't know. But we're talking about video games here, and this is something that was 15 years ago, right? Yeah, right. So you can extrapolate and do all kinds of, journalism 101, thought, whatever, thought experiments. But I don't see any way that this would have harmed Nintendo whatsoever. And, Did You Know Gaming said they said that Nintendo was doing it just to censor them, but Nintendo didn't really indicate that they were doing it for any other reason. Companies do not have a great track record of, let alone, because sure, from a legal perspective, copyright is different in different countries, but companies don't have a good track record of honoring any form of any form of fair use or anything like that anywhere, because they're not in it for a discussion about fair use and what is ethical reporting and stuff like that. They're in it to protect their own, of course, IP. And when it comes to protecting their own IP, they're going to do as little as they can to protect it, or they're going to spend as little as they can to protect it, and in many cases, they will then do as little as they can to maintain it, because you cannot give the responsibility of maintaining a copyright to the copyright owners.
Yeah, right.
So good for them. I'm glad. I hope this is the way it is. I hope this is how it stays, and Nintendo doesn't do something in a few days where they come back or whatever.
I hope not either.
Connor, do you want to slap me in the face? Do you want to fight again over it? The only reason I'm joking about this, you have a bit of a different opinion on but you come from a world where it's different. You come from a different context.
And I am a copyright holder.
Sure. And we may or may not use your songs. And you may or may not be bad enough to revoke that.
But I do want just to point out your point about it not being copywritten. That doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay.
That doesn't matter because it is a derivative of their original copyright.
Oh, good point.
So it's protected by that first copyright.
Got it.
Yeah. It's obnoxious, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's the rules.
I don't
get it. Okay. All right.
Richard Tyler is a fan of anarchy.
Apparently.
No rules, nothing. Just everyone out for themselves.
This is mine now. AetherSX2 development stops after death threats to its creator. The AetherSX2 is a PS2 emulator for Android made by one person. The specifics are sparse, but the developer said on their website, quote, "Due to never-ending impersonating, complaints, demands, and now death threats, I'm done. You can still download/use the app, and it will continue to work for the foreseeable future. AetherSX2 was always meant to be a fun hobby for me, not profit-driven. It doesn't make sense to continue working on a hobby which isn't fun anymore. Stay safe out there and watch out for scammers. There seems to be a lot of them." End quote.
This sucks.
Yeah, no, it does suck.
And I'll be 100% full disclosure here. I didn't know about this emulator.
I didn't either.
And that's not to say that it's a bad emulator or anything like that. But the people that work on, people that put emulators together, people that get preservation working, I mean, these are the unsung heroes of the history of video games.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll hear their songs here, but I think in general, the unsung heroes of video game preservation, of video game history, in 100 years, you know, if there is a book about video game history and we are talking, and in that book they're talking about old games that disappeared, there are people doing the work now to make sure that happens. So this is folded in with that. And I have no idea of the context, but there's no reason
I don't
for
either.
death threats in any context.
It's weird too, because this guy is ostensibly not really doing anything that would cause death threats in my opinion. The PS2 has always been somewhat difficult to emulate for, although emulation now is at its best state it's ever been. From what I understand, I never knew about this emulator before the story hit a couple days ago, but from what I heard or what I read in the comments, it seemed to be a very good emulator for Android. But it's unfortunate that someone was driven out of that, and this will probably be either picked up by somebody else who's just as passionate about the preservation of the emulator, or at least, you know, the work that user has done. But we'll hear about it, in the history books. I mean, still to this day, even though there are plenty of emulators that are not around anymore, the emulators that now exist are derivatives of that original work. Yeah, exactly. So
I think I speak for all of us when I say to the people that sent the death threats, fuck you.
Yeah, for sure.
He's
doing you a favor.
He's doing you a favor. One, that. Two, it's a passion project. Three, there is zero cause for that.
Yeah. And I think I remember I was listening to a podcast, the Video Game History Hour, a year ago on one of their podcasts. And they were talking about somebody. What game was it? I want to say it was like a Barbie game or a My Little Pony game. Somebody had found a copy of a Barbie game or a My Little Pony game that had gone missing or something.
Okay, yeah.
It was like based on a toy. And this person got the game, but in order to protect it, they weren't going to release it right away. And people got really, really angry.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't know why you get that angry in the first place. But two, I think I don't think people always understand the work that goes into not just the technical side of emulation, but when you're talking about video game preservation in general, because you can't necessarily do everything out in the open because of copyright law and bullshit like that, right?
Right.
So when it comes to revealing sources or just dumping stuff somewhere, there are things where you have to self-censor or not tell things or not tell the full story, not because you want to keep things from people, but because in order to preserve it so it can be released on another day or at a better time, that's what you have to do. Again, the context of this harassment, I don't know, but that kind of reminded me of that, because there's so much that goes into working in video game preservation, and being super aggressive about it. I just, solutions are not easy.
Right.
And if anything, dumping things out and releasing things quickly, that can have adverse effects, because then you run into laws, you run into all kinds of issues like that. But I hope, even though I don't use this emulator, I hope somebody picks it up, because you want as many things out. If you believe in video game preservation, you want as many of these things out there as humanly possible. So, rooting for Aether.
Let's go.
SX2. Sony has announced an accessibility controller. It's called Project Leonardo. The controller was revealed at CES. It's a circle, kind of like a circle, looks like kind of a pie.
Looks like a Simon.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, with customizable buttons and a joystick that can be adjusted and moved away from the gamepad. I wrote down, it kind of looks, this is better than what I just said, a pie. It kind of looks like a flight stick in a sense, but the flight stick is sort of off to the side, and then it's connected via like a connector that I guess slides in and out underneath 2 Leonardo controllers can be paired together or even paired with a DualSense controller. And I guess I was reading that somebody could be using the controller and somebody then could also be using one of the Leonardo controllers or something like that.
Oh, neat. Oh, to help out.
So there's like a bunch of different stuff you can do. It has 4 3.5 millimeter aux inputs that can support third-party devices. There will also be software customization options, like the ability to map 2 functions to 1 button. So in God of War, it's like L1 and square is one of your runic attacks.
Yes. Yeah.
You can map that guy to a single button. And I think this is great. I think more accessibility is always great. Of course, no one here is an expert when it comes to accessibility tech, but Xbox released their controller a few years ago, and it seemed like it was successful.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not an expert in that kind of stuff. But Sony seems to be leading the way, not only with, I don't want to say leading the way. I don't know who's leading the way, but seems to, I don't know. We're all really cynical about these companies, and for good reason, but it's hard to be cynical about something like this.
Yeah, they do good things.
Yeah.
They all do.
Because it feels like, what is Sony getting out of this that we could be cynical about? Like, I don't.
Well, exposure.
Well, yeah, but they're Sony, they're PlayStation, whatever they do, they're gonna get
for every for any chastising they get, they do something like this to pat themselves on the back.
Sure. Virtue signal or something.
But yeah, but I'm with you. There should be no disagreement that there should be more accessibility just across the board for things. And I've used accessibility for my own gain in certain games. It's I don't need it, but I'm just like, hey, how about I use this thing to highlight all the items so I don't have to go searching for them?
Easier,
it's just like whatever. I don't want to waste my time. So
I think there are, and I'm not a developer. I'm not going to say these things are easy to do. That's not what we're saying. But I remember one of my favorite things about Horizon Forbidden West, and God of War Ragnarok did this too, is in Forbidden West, it made it an option where if you pick something up off the ground, it could be like Ghost of Tsushima. Jen just picks it up. It just disappears. So you could be sprinting through a town and you run next to some bamboo and you pick it up.
Yep.
He doesn't do it isn't Red Dead 2 where it's this 8-minute and he rolls off all the leaves and Arthur puts it in his bag. So that's nice. It was in Forbidden West, and in Forbidden West you're constantly picking stuff up off the ground. So it cuts down on the little tiny actions that you don't need. And I think God of War had that as well. So little tiny things like that. I'm not going to say all games have to do it, because for whatever reason, Rockstar wants you to spend your time picking up and if they say we don't want to have an option or you can skip that animation, well, okay. Far Cry did it, because the animation to skin animals, they made that where you didn't have to watch that. You just hold the button and then the animal, it was kind of terrifying because the animal would just appear in front of you skinned. But anyway, so I think stuff like that is great. But that's not necessarily accessibility. That's like quality of life. But with God of War's accessibility was crazy. You could change. I don't know if you ever went into it.
No, I haven't even looked at it.
Yeah. You can change the character models to be solid colors. It's and I guess this helps with visually impaired or colorblind, what have you. But you can change it to where Kratos just looks like a super buff Gumby.
Yeah,
it's very weird.
I did read that somebody was able to play and beat it just by the sounds alone.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy to me.
Crazy awesome.
Yeah, and have you played? I mean to experiment, but I do wonder what all text to speech does, because I assume it just doesn't just read the menus. I wonder if it actually will tell you on-screen prompts or something like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, maybe items you pick up and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome,
okay.
though.
Also announced at CES, HTC. Oh, sorry, Connor. Did you?
No, I was just looking through the options of accessibility for God of War Ragnarok. One of them is puzzle timing.
Yeah, you can make puzzles. Yeah, you can make puzzles a lot easier. Yeah.
I wonder if you turn that down all the way, if it doesn't, give you the hint when you're just looking around the
Anyway, also at CES, HTC's XR Elite VR headset was revealed, running $1,099 USD. Full color pass-through, hands tracking, and an optional battery pack that can replace the headsets. The headset has like a standard back strap.
Right.
You can take the strap off, and then you have sort of like big glasses, and then the battery pack, I guess, snaps back on. So you have a halo, you take off the top part of the halo battery pack, and you're good to go. A 1920 by 1920 per eye resolution, and I have here a 19 hertz refresh rate. That is incorrect. I don't know why I put 19 hertz.
I looked at that and I was like, that doesn't look right.
I assume I meant 90 hertz refresh rate, because 19 hertz would be like you've got like, I don't even know.
It's a flip book.
Yeah. Stop motion animation.
Stop motion animation glued to your headset. Embedded speakers in the strap, similar to the Quest 2, and a Qualcomm Snapdragon XR2 processor, which is mobile. Man, I'm so bad at the tech stuff. That's a mobile architecture, right? Is that accurate to say?
That's the same. It's the
same one that's in the Quest,
yes,
right? Or
same one that's in the
Quest.
Quest.
A similar
yeah.
one.
No, it's the same one.
Okay, so
or similar. Yeah,
and they're Android or whatever, right?
Yes. Android.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you guys got a good look at the headset.
Yes, I did. I saw pictures. I didn't look at like all the specs and everything just because I saw the price. And I was like, well, I'm not getting that one. But now looking like why is it so expensive? I don't understand why it's so expensive.
Yeah, it could be the battery pack.
Could be.
You have inside out tracking, so you're going to have cameras and stuff that you don't need, or that I assume make it a little more expensive.
I don't feel alone in this, but I feel weird I feel like an old man saying this. I feel like they're introducing way too many things that they think people need when they haven't finished doing the first thing.
I don't think you're wrong.
I don't need full color pass-through. I don't need pass-through at all. Well, maybe to like see my cat or something, but I'll know when he's there. Like he rubs up on me. It's like, get away, So I know that. Like I don't do hand tracking. I tried it once and it's like, okay, that's kind of neat, but unless you have a very good lit room, like it's kind of moot. That eye resolution is barely better than the Quest 2.
Eye resolution is a weird thing with VR headsets. It is a weird thing because VR headsets aren't square,
right?
Because the oculars. So it's.
But regardless of what you want to do, like the Quest 2 is still fantastic for it. It's better than all of them except for the.
It's
the index.
Yeah,
right?
It's debatable on what you mean by better, because the Quest 2 has higher resolution,
right,
than the index. But the index,
I didn't know that.
But the index, because it's going to be tethered to a PC,
right,
is going to have the higher refresh rates and stuff like that. And then you can do the index itself has super sampling, which you can't do with the Quest 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually a weird sensation when you go back between the Quest 2 and the index, because the Quest 2 has a much better resolution. And you go to the index and it's like, holy shit, it looks so much better. It's not even a joke. But that resolution, you have that screen door effect. Well, I don't experience the screen door effect that much with the index.
But I feel like the only other company that I think had, a dog in this race was HTC. And I don't think that they are kind of going the correct route.
I would agree.
As of now, Meta unfortunately has created like the bar. Like they have set the bar. Like, okay, if you want to like at all compete in this not industry, but in this like landscape, then you need to at least get close to that $399 price point at what you're doing. And
I don't think it's sustainable.
I don't.
Because they've been hemorrhaging money with their metaverse bullshit. Mm-hmm. And it has not been successful. So at what point? So I agree. Like hand tracking is cool, but just today I was playing Half-Life Alyx, and there's a moment where you point at things in Half-Life Alyx to do something, and I was doing what hand tracking games have you do, but I have controllers in my hands. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so why have me get rid of the controllers? If anything, I'm losing gameplay by getting rid of the controllers, because then I don't have buttons and analog sticks and triggers.
Yeah. And it's all interesting too, because as of now, I think the Index and the Quest 2 have You can see it on the Quest 2 because your hands are on the controller, but when you just barely touch the triggers, it knows that you're touching the trigger. So if I want to point to something, why don't I just like barely touch it and it realizes that I'm pointing? Like,
sure, exactly.
You have enough buttons now to kind of get past that, in my opinion. Hand
tracking, I think, is an idea that Mark Zuckerberg thinks is really cool, and people that are super into metaverse bullshit, crypto bullshit, think is really cool. But when we're talking about video games, a controller is fine. I don't know if you need, finger tracking is specifically different from hand tracking, because again, the knuckle control, the Valve Index has finger tracking, and finger tracking means that you could theoretically have a keyboard in front of you and you could press your fingers individually on a keyboard. So now, no games have really done that I've played. Color pass-through, I would slightly disagree with you on pass-through, because I think pass-through, depending on how much you use VR, is super convenient, because, if your phone goes off, let's say you're playing for 2 hours, and during that 2 hours, 4 times something happens where you have to take off your headset. That's 4 times your eyes are going to have to adjust. That's 4 times you're going to have to take the headset off, put it back down. And for a lot of people, that's going to be motion sickness. That's going to be discomfort. Whatever, right?
Right.
But pass-through is you tap the side of your headset. You have like a CRT camera view of your layout. Not good enough where you can like read books, but good enough that if there's a book on the ground, you can pick it up really easy.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a chair in the room, you can put on your headset, activate the pass-through, move the chair out of the way. If your alarm on your phone, like my phone, when my alarm goes off, I can deactivate my alarm. I can't, if somebody calls, you can't really read who's calling. So in that case, you have to take off the headset. But like I can see the little red X to turn off the alarm. So like little tiny disruptions like that. And I think pass-through is really handy for all that stuff. But none of that stuff needs color. I don't need to be able to see the color of my chair to be able to move my chair. Mm-hmm. And I want to say I read something with this headset and with Meta's next headset, they said this too, with like what use is colored pass-through going to be? And this may be inaccurate, but I'm pretty sure it's accurate. And kind of both times the company said, we don't really know, but we'll see what people come up with. It's like, okay. Is it really a utility that you see a future for, or is it just something cool that you can say you have in a headset?
It's the latter, I think, because for me, I don't use pass-through, and other people do. You've used it. You give great examples of why it should be there, but also you have color pass-through and you use it. Why are you wearing the headset?
Exactly. I don't know. Just like that's the thing. The barriers, the examples for pass-through are one thing. And by the way, I still survive with the Index. The Index has experimental pass-through, which I didn't even know till today. But not something that you can use super easily.
Right, yeah.
And I'm still alive. So it's like, it's fine. So color pass-through is something that you really don't need to, and by making this headsets, and what's really weird about this is the price, and you've got a mobile processor. So it's like, so if I'm looking for a headset and I own a gaming PC,
mm-hmm.
why not get why not get the Valve Index?
Yeah.
If I'm fine dropping $1,000 on a headset, and I look at this and I look at the Index, sure, this may have the better resolution or whatever.
Right.
But with the Valve Index, you get it's a PC headset. You're gonna have better refresh mm-hmm. rates. At the end of the day, I think refresh rate matters a little bit more, especially in VR.
Right.
You got all the super sampling shit. And because of Valve's platform agnostic approach, it means if you can get it to work on the headset, you can play it. There's going to be no mm-hmm. exclusivity. Mm-hmm. So I see no downside. It's not inside out tracking. You need sensors, which is a little bit of a inconvenience, but still, like for $100 less to get a headset that I think is going to be, I don't know. I honestly think the Index is still the better option here.
Right. And we then have to see at the beginning or end of February how things turn out with the PSVR 2.
Yeah, and that's the wild card.
Because, it is singular cable to USB-C, which all PCs have, unlike the proprietary first connection that the PSVR 1 had.
God, this idea.
somebody is going to make an application of some sort. Like,
and Sony needs to do it.
Yes, and if Sony does it, they're second best, maybe first best.
I mean, and
like when it comes to headset.
Let us say this: I have no idea the technological requirements for that. Right? I have no idea what would go into making the PSVR 2 work with PC. No idea if it's as simple as a firmware update or some bullshit, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know what firmware means, but no, okay, right? So I just want to say, I will put that up front. But like, if I am Sony, that is such a huge, advantage, right? Yes. Because if you break into that market, you're the only headset that exists on those two markets.
Yep.
Yeah, the Quest 2, you can play standalone, but nobody plays standalone. Get out of here, right? So, I mean, tons of people do, but whatever. Shut up, Mark. Not enough you can sustain a gigantic business. But if you're Sony, right, and you make an update like that, not only do you have a cheaper alternative to PC headsets, but you have an excuse for somebody who doesn't own a PS5 to say, hey, I got the PSVR 2, maybe I'll get this PS5 too, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then if you take some of your PlayStation games, your PlayStation VR games, of which there's like a ton in development apparently, and you push a few over to PC, well, all of a sudden you're doing more of that, like dipping your toe in the water that you've been doing with PC that I think has been mostly a major success for Sony. There is not a downside there. The only downside is that everybody that buys it uses it for their PS5 and nobody uses it for their PC. And in that case, it's like, well, okay, you didn't really lose anything, did you?
Maybe you got yourself a stew going.
I think that is such a good idea. Jim, listen. Jim Ryan, listen to me. Enable the PSVR 2 for PC.
There's money to be made.
And enter that VR market. It would be like a wrestling match where it's like the Valve Index like body slams the Quest 2 and the Quest 2 is broken in half, and then the announcer's like, oh my god, I can't believe it. And then like you hear like rock music.
Yeah, and then
the curtain opens and PSVR 2 struts out. And the announcer's like, he can't do that, that's against the rules. That's what it would be like. I'm sorry.
No, you are correct.
Are we ready for tidbits?
Yes.
A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the tidbits.
Got 2 tidbits today. Both of them are verbatim.
Nice.
So they'll be a little fast, but we can talk about it. But Microsoft has recognized the ZeniMax union that was just voted for the other day. A supermajority of quality assurance workers at ZeniMax Studios, which is comprised of several studios like id Software, Arcane, and Bethesda, have voted to join the ZeniMax Workers United/Communication Workers of America Union. Quote, Microsoft has lived up to its commitment to its workers and let them decide for themselves whether they want a union, end quote. CWA President Chris Shelton writes in the press release. Quote, other video game and tech giants have made a conscious choice to attack, undermine, and demoralize their own employees when they join together to form a union. Microsoft is charting a different course which will strengthen its corporate culture and ability to serve its customers and should serve as a model for the industry and as a blueprint for regulators, end quote.
And that's from a Game Informer.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, that's from Game Informer.
Good across the board. That was going to be a litmus test for Microsoft.
Yeah.
Microsoft does look silly. We didn't talk about it, but they called the FTC unconstitutional. It's like the president is unconstitutional, which, I mean, I'm sure there are people, in the backwaters of Virginia somewhere that argue the president's unconstitutional.
Yeah, but,
I mean, no. Connor, slowly raising your hand. You just called me the anarchist. No, but good across the board. And this is the reality, I think. Any game executive, any game, whatever, higher up C-suite jabroni who wants to complain about game unions, guess what, bucko? You had 30 years to make the industry better. You didn't fucking do it, so people are forming unions. Put up with it.
Yeah, bucko.
Yeah, bucko. I was channeling D. Reynolds. Listen here, dickwads. Sorry. Anyway, next story.
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to find a really good example about like. No. I'm gonna get this all wrong, but I'll say it anyways. In the 80s, when Atari was around, they were making hand over fist money. The developers were like living like kings, and one of the CEOs came in at the time. I forgot his name, but he basically he called them a bunch of like, I can't remember, something stoner prima donnas or something like that. And so like all the developers got that phrase like on a t-shirt and they were just wearing it around.
Awesome.
Yeah. But it's just like, man, like they were free back then. Like the developers, they could just like kind of do what they want. And now it's like, yeah, like you said, they had 30 years to get it correct, or 40 plus years to get it correct, and they still haven't. And this is just one more step for developers wearing t-shirts and getting stoned. High-strung prima donnas. That's right. Thank you.
Nice.
Anyways, the PS5 has surpassed 30 million units sold. This is also from Game Informer, and this news comes by the way of recent CES 2023 appearance, where PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan revealed that those numbers alongside words that seem to indicate that the PS5 shortage might be over, or at least coming to an end soon. By the way, every time someone comes into the store and asks if I have a PS5, I tell them no, but the Sony website does. And I pull up the Sony website, and every single time, add to cart. It's been there.
Really?
Yes, like every single time. It's the God of War Ragnarok bundle, but still, it's like, you want a PS5? There you go.
Wow,
it's
so they have them on there, huh?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
There was one time they had the console alone, but they've always had the God of War Ragnarok bundle in. And I just tell people, I'm like, there it is. And then they go, and I'm like, all right, get the fuck out of my face.
Well, we need a sounder. Okay, Connor, right now, we're gonna do this. We need a sounder that's like Richard Richard
stories. Gamers.
Or we could do it's store stories, and we could have like machine gun fire and then we have to get cuts of like, I was at the store. We had customers left and right, like some kind of play on war stories. Okay, we're gonna get this going because there is nothing like the scorn and sarcasm of Richard Tired.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here. Oh, that's great. Do you have any other stories? Did someone come in the other day?
So what, we talk about, we talk about emulation and stuff all the time, and it's so fun. I think I told this one, but it's, the Donkey Kong one about the kid. There's a guy who's like, hey, do you have Donkey Kong? And he had his kid with him, or like his nephew or something.
Sure.
He's like, do you have Donkey Kong Country? And I was like, yeah, it's over there. The guy's like, oh yeah, have you played this Donkey Kong Country? And the kid is like, oh yeah, I played it. I have it on the Switch online because it's on. He's like, yeah, but you haven't played this one. And it's like, same fucking game, man. Like it is the same exact game, and he's just playing it on a Switch rather. But the
future's now, old man.
Right, the future's now, old man. Right, exactly. But that is the thing that people get strung up on, and the reason why we have exorbitant prices that we do in the game industry. Well, the used game industry, is because people want the thing that they used to have, but they can't have that thing because 90s, early 2000s, we were renting games. We weren't buying them.
Sure.
We were renting games.
I was there.
When you did buy them, your parents bought them once or twice a year, on your birthday or Christmas.
Yeah.
Once or twice a year. And then, even then, 5-6 people would go to one person's house and play those games.
That's how we experienced Metal Gear Solid, was friend's house, right?
Yeah. And I tell people that, and they're like, well, I had it. I'm like, no, I understand you had it. Like, but you don't understand everybody else, that's 4 or 5 times the amount of people who remember Mario Party 7. Because one kid had it. And now these 5-7 people want it for themselves nowadays. They don't make it anymore, buddy, Yeah. And so I go, I'll say things like, oh yeah, well, you can, buy like the NES Classic and it has like the 30 games on it or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but I want it. Like, I want the thing. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry.
Open your wallet.
Yeah, right. Open your wallet, because that NES Classic is $80 and Mario World is $20-$25.
Yeah.
And so you get 30 games in this, but you get like a 25 for one game, and then you got to buy the console, and then you got to buy it. Like, so much easier and simpler. Just buy the, I'm going to make myself go out of business to an extent, but by saying
Well, I mean but that's like I don't see how it's any different from like old cars.
It's not. No, it's cyclical.
the same exact thing.
Yeah, it's cyclical. All like cassettes are back. Jesus Christ! Like cassettes are they've made a comeback, and so however long it's going to be until mini discs are back in. These things are just going to come back around eventually. But anyways,
sure.
This was in the middle of talking about this
30 million
story.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the quote. Finally, quote, Jim Ryan said this, by the way, quote, "We truly appreciate the support and patience of the PlayStation community as we manage unprecedented demand amid global challenges over the past 2 years," Ryan said on stage during Sony's conference. And PS5 supply improved towards the end of the last year, and I'm happy to share that December was the biggest month ever for PS5 console sales, and that we've now sold more than 30 million units through to customers worldwide. Everyone who wants a PS5 should have a much easier time finding one at retailers globally starting from this point forward, end quote.
Off the top of our heads,
69.
Why do we...
Nice.
That was not the question I was going to ask.
42.
But now we can't
At
air
least
this
7.
podcast, or else YouTube will demonetize.
420.
Off the top of our heads, why do we think the PlayStation 5 is more expensive?
Sure.
PlayStation 5 is more expensive.
Uh-huh.
The Xbox was easier to get a hold of, the new Xbox.
The series, yeah.
But as far as we know, the PlayStation 5 is outselling it. It's doing a better job. What are the complex reasons behind that? Is it the first-party IPs? Is it still residual, like Xbox One was such a bad console that it's like extending into this? And I'm not saying that the Series X is selling poorly or anything. I think it's doing good too.
I think it's doing good as well.
But like for whatever reason,
I think it's a combination of three things. Just me personally, from what I see visually with media and like all around it. First thing is the games. It is the games, the first party games particularly. PlayStation does have the games that you want to play, the big blockbusters, so to speak.
Sure.
Secondly is Game Pass to an extent. People like Game Pass, people love Game Pass, but there are a lot of people who are adverse to using Game Pass. Because they don't have the thing.
Yeah. And I understand that.
And it is the thing that we always say.
I have that a little bit too.
Right,
yeah,
with
definitely.
with the digital games. Like, I don't actually own it. It's like, okay, yeah, you never owned it when you rented it either. Sure. It's same thing, different format in a sense. I know that's a bit effective, but and third, I think it's image. PlayStation has always been cool, if that makes sense.
You really think so?
I think so.
Even with like the PS3 and the 360? Because then no. Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, they absolutely stumbled. And Xbox became cool, and Xbox still is cool, but I think in like...
You say that, but the PS3 sold more than the Xbox 360.
Eventually it did.
Yeah.
Yes, eventually it did. I think overall, in the like stratosphere of like pop culture, like PlayStation is cool. Like the visuals of having a PlayStation was cool. And I think still that carries on today with like pop artists and musicians and stuff, and even I hate using influencers.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And having an Xbox is also cool, but when it comes to both, I see so many more copies of like sports Xbox than I PlayStation, so it kind of like shows the demographics.
Okay.
And I think that like Call of Duty is way bigger on Xbox than it is PlayStation.
Okay.
That I know, because people like and you get different opinions. My coworker hates Xbox, likes the controller, and like people who like really like the Xbox don't like the PlayStation's controller, or like there will be things that they don't like about each other that will like tilt their decision one way or another. Some of it is very small, some of it is very big. And it's interesting to see all of that, doing what I do, because I see all sorts of, my word is an end all be all, because like, once again, my store, which is in a certain part of Arizona, is completely different than my other store in North Phoenix. Like what people are looking for up there, 100% different than what people are looking for down here. So I can only say what I see personally.
Sure. I do think there is a certain cult. PlayStation has a certain like cultural weight that maybe Xbox doesn't.
Mhm.
Maybe it's the PS2. Maybe so many people grew up with a PS2, and Xbox was definitely second there. Not maybe, I mean, so many people grew up with PS2, GameCube.
Yeah.
You know, not a ton of people grew up with an Xbox, right? Not a ton of people like our second console, Connor and I, because we're brothers, second console was Xbox. We had a PS2 and then we got an Xbox a while after that, and we played Halo all day, every day. But like, it's funny because there's like this not a meme, but a cultural phenomenon in sports, especially with college football because it's younger, where when a player does a spin move and they spin away from a tackler, a play-by-play guy or a highlight guy will always say, you press the circle button there. Oh, you just press the circle button. It's never the B button.
Yeah.
It's always the circle button, right? And I always found that interesting because that's a PlayStation button, not an Xbox button. And it's always the circle button. That's the first thing everybody thinks of because when you press circle and you're playing a football game, that's the spin button. Anyway,
that's just seamlessly he included sports.
No, but I think that's a really good example.
It is.
Yeah, I know. I'm joking, but I think it's a good example.
You brought up a really good example too, because it's how many times when people are looking for things, I honestly try to help people. Try to get them the best deal or whatnot, because that's what I do. Because at the end of the day, it's video games. But one thing, it's the same thing with Sega and Nintendo, Genesis and Super Nintendo, and the same thing with Xbox and PlayStation. But it's like, I'm looking for Silent Hill 2 on PS2. Silent Hill 2 right now on PS2 is like $150, $160. Like, oh, sorry, I don't have it on PS2, but I have it on Xbox. And it's $40, $50 on Xbox compared to the like 120, whatever.
When you say, you mean like the original
Xbox?
I had no idea there's even an original Xbox. Oh, I had no idea.
2 and 4 are on original Xbox.
Interesting. No idea. Okay.
Yeah. But I'm like, like it's on original Xbox. Like original Xbox is $80, and then Silent Hill 2 is $40. Like it's there. Yeah, but I want it on the PlayStation. Okay. Like, so it's that like preference just doesn't get past people. But it's interesting that, people have already chose their side. Even if they can get the way better deal out of it, they'll go to what they're familiar with.
Sure.
And so, if you right now were to get an Xbox, like either 360 or just original Xbox, and buy the games that are on both systems, you're going to find way better deals 360
that's
original
fascinating.
Xbox than you will on PlayStation. Yeah.
The sociological reasons behind that
It's
would
wild.
be a really interesting study.
Yeah.
Behind like, because there's got to be marketing reasons for that. There's got to be like age demographics, how you grew up, how one of the consoles sold better, and so
probably tied to your Zodiac.
And it's also strange too, because like the Silent Hill 2 on original Xbox is the director's cut, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so it has like more like scenarios, I think, and different things.
Okay. Alrighty then. If we're done, follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse, and we will see you next week.
Bye.